Welcome. I'm Andy Carlson, and you're listening to the Time with Tim podcast. Each episode, we explore the impact of complex trauma through the personal journeys of our guests. Along the way, we'll connect with experts and individuals who share their unique perspectives, insights, and practical tools to help you on your healing journey. Let's take this time to learn together. Welcome back to Time with Tim. I'm Andy Carlson, joined by Tim Fletcher, and today we're continuing our series of conversations with Jenna Miscavige. Last time, we explored Jenna's childhood in Scientology, the course of control, and its effect on self-image and mental health. And today we want to start by checking in. So Jenna, after sitting with everything we talked about last week, where has your mind gone with it? And have any new thoughts or questions come up as you've processed our conversation?
Yes. I mean, my mind has definitely gone on 10,000 different tangents and had one question that's led to another. And so I'm just trying to contain it all. And just I think if I have a place where I think would be good to start, and then we'll see what comes up.
Yeah, well, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I guess my first question, I guess on some level, understanding what's happening to you is the first part of healing, or what's happening in your mind and stuff. And that makes sense. And I guess I wanted to ask, okay, well, what do you sort of do to heal from that point? Because one thing that I've noticed with myself is that, if I'm in a moment and I'm getting really upset and frantic and afraid, and I'm I know this is fear of abandonment. I'm I know that that's what's happening. And then I'm also and guess what? That does nothing. I feel exactly the same. And I'm I think maybe because in Scientology, we would believe that if you knew what it was, then it would disappear. That's part of their counseling.
Right.
And so I keep waiting, I think subconsciously, for that to happen. I'm I know what this is. And then I'm I'm still losing my mind.
So let me just say up front, and then I'll get into your question, but most cults, high control religions have what we call spiritual bypassing. And it's basically what they call as kind of magic little tricks that if you do this, then you don't have to feel painful emotions. You don't have to sit in painful emotions. You don't have to go through a slow process of growth that's very messy. There's just a quick magic fix, and you just get over it. And so that's kind of a big thing that they use as a selling feature, that we kind of offer this instant healing, this instant solution to all your problems. And people get attracted to that, but sadly then they get disillusioned because it doesn't work for them. But then what they're told is, what's nothing wrong with what we're teaching you, it must be something wrong with you. You're the problem. And it just
so true
deepens the shame even worse, because, well, what am I doing wrong? I must be dumber than everybody else. I must have some problem in my life that I can't see. And it just can drive you crazy.
In Scientology, they actually teach you that if you don't improve from their counseling, that you are what they call a suppressive person.
Exactly.
So you're incentivized to pretend like you're feeling better.
Yeah.
And then you're pushing it down or whatever.
Yeah. So every high control religion is exactly the same way. And basically it ends up with people, exactly what you say, they just suppress what they're really feeling, put on a happy face, act like they've got it all together, act like it's not bothering them, act like they've got victory over it, and away they go. But it leads to even greater kind of put on a persona, a mask, do whatever they say on the outside. So image becomes everything, but your internal world is a total mess. But you can't be honest about it. So now you have to be more and more dishonest, even with yourself, about how you're feeling and how you're doing. Because if you get honest, you get judged. Right. Nobody accepts it. Nobody wants to work with you. You're the problem. And it just leads to kind of this bigger and bigger fracture inside of yourself between who you really are and what you're trying to present to the world.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I never thought of it as like putting on a mask, but that's literally like I almost thought of it, okay, maybe it's helping, maybe it's good that I talked about it, but it's actually worse. You're talking about it and then having to like force yourself into a reality that isn't real to perform for the
Yeah.
person in front of you.
So one of the things we say about complex trauma families is 3 emotions are allowed: mad, sad, and glad.
Mm.
But only dad can be mad, the authority.
Mm.
Mom can be sad, but the kid's got to be
Mm.
glad all the time. So the kids are allowed 1 emotion.
Yes, in Scientology they have like a tone scale, and it's like if you're not up tone, like higher on the emotional tone scale, then you're like a degraded being, and it's like if that person's not up tone, that's what they call it.
Yeah.
And it's
So
considered
when,
like it's like means that you because they also believe that if you like think something bad about somebody in Scientology, then it's because you've done something bad.
right,
So it's almost like once you say something bad in a counseling session and they say, okay, what have you done that you're hiding that makes you think this way? And then you tell them, you then also have to pretend like you don't think that thing anymore. But
exactly.
I was
Yeah,
always like, but I still think that. I still
exactly.
think they're a jerk.
Right. So basically the child learns what's expected. So 1 emotion, always speak positively, whatever. I got to
Mhm.
conform to that, but that means I got to have growing dishonesty inside of me. I can't be honest what I'm feeling, can't be honest about what I think.
Mhm.
And so that just creates an internal tension in a child that they can't resolve.
Yeah.
Because what do you do with that? So they just have to suppress everything, deny it, try to convince themselves that they're not really feeling that or thinking that. Some can, some kids can't, but you can just, it's like holding down a beach ball in the water. It takes a lot of energy to suppress all of that stuff. And it might be happening subconsciously, but it's taking its toll on your internal world.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And there was something, I think it was in one of your videos or maybe in the class, but it's like you almost, because you're so used to suppressing your feelings, and it takes me a lot of energy to hold it down. There comes a point where it just like blows up, and
Exactly.
I don't actually know that I'm at like an 8,
Right.
and that like I don't know that. It just seems like it goes from like 1 to 10. And it's because I was like, as long as I'm not at a 10, then I'm fine. But I'm
Yes.
not paying attention to all of the little things in between. And that's something that I'm trying to do, like be like, okay, no, I was already at this level. And because it's almost like I wasn't allowed to have it be at that level. Me feeling that way was like not okay or being dramatic or something. And I'm like trying to give myself like space to be like, this is where you're at. And
Right.
even if it's not for the reasons that you think it is, there is still a reason.
Yes. Yeah. So I try to help people understand that emotions are like the lights on the dashboard of a car.
Mm.
They're there just to tell you what's going on. They're not good or bad. They're just indicators. They're sending messages
Mm.
about what's going on underneath the hood, what's going on in your internal world. And that's what emotions are. They're telling you something's wrong here. There's danger here. There's hurt here. There's all kinds of different things. And so what happens with high control religion Scientology is emotions get classified as bad or good.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
But the only good emotions are you got to be positive all the time.
Right.
Any negative, painful emotion, well, that's bad. Something's wrong with you. It's not that you're hurt. It's not, you can't explore what's going on. And so if you look at your painful emotions, they usually come out of somehow love has been violated. So I got lied to, I got betrayed, I got disrespected, I got rejected. Oh, that
Mm.
hurts. Yeah, that helps me go, something needs to be fixed because a relationship is damaged here and it's hurting me. So the emotions are designed to pull you towards a good direction. I want to fix this. I want to resolve this problem so we can get back to love. But what happens within high control religions is, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad, you're bad. It's not the problem now that you can explore. It's not your internal world that you can explore. You're just bad for having that emotion, and you should make it go away magically. So you never learn from it. You never are able to resolve the situation and improve it because you're just told it's bad and it's your problem.
That makes a lot of sense. And it makes sense too, like why maybe you would have delayed development with trying to solve those things because you never did. Like, so you don't have the practice.
Exactly. Or the tools.
Yeah. Or the experience and wisdom with dealing with it.
Yeah. And nobody ever made space for you to feel emotions and say, hey, that's okay. Let's explore what's going on and kind of have compassion towards it and then be curious about it. Are you hurt? Are you upset? Why are you feeling that way? Nobody did that. So you didn't learn how to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
And so that ability to be curious about your emotions and non-judgmental and be compassionate to yourself. As soon as you feel a negative emotion, you get down on yourself. You get hard on yourself. You judge yourself negatively. And it's like you start beating yourself up. And it's like, whoa, that doesn't help anybody. But that was what you grew up in, and that's all you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it also, like, there's another phase that's been happening because this also happened in Scientology, which is that first I would like get down on myself. Why am I feeling this way? I shouldn't. And then I'm like, no, I should. I saw this thing happen. I'm like, I'm not okay with that. And then I get like this little bit of a panic that people won't believe me because nobody ever believed me or gave a crap in Scientology at all. And then I start over explaining myself, getting over defensive. And then I take it maybe a little bit too far, which is, I guess there's like this weird question I wanted to ask you, which is that, like, we talked a little bit about gut feelings. And so it's like something like that would be me going on a gut feeling like, oh, this isn't right. But then also it's scary to take your gut feeling if you're overreacting to it and going to do something destructive as a result of it. And so I guess I was going to ask you, like we talked about the limbic brain and the cortex. And is a gut feeling just something from the limbic brain that you need to sort out with your cortex, kind of?
So your gut feeling comes out of your vagus nerve. So it's referred to as neuroception. And so we have perception, your five senses pick up. We have interoception, your vagus nerve keeps track of, am I hungry? Do I got to pee? Do I have an itch? Am I cold? All of those internal things. And then neuroception is vibes.
Oh, I'm going to write that down because some people they're good at neuroception.
Right. So you look at a little child or a dog and they walk up to one person and they run right into their arms, and they walk up to another person and they just walk right away. And you go, they don't know either person. Why are they feeling safe with one and not with the other? Because they're picking up a vibe.
Yeah, it's like when women are like, I'll know if this man is good if my dog likes it.
Exactly.
I was just thinking of there's something about Mary because she's like, the dog doesn't like him. He's bad.
So let me take your situation. And so I think as I get to know you a little bit, Jenna, it's what I see in you is this. You're wanting to conform so you'll be accepted, but yet something in you says, but that's not the truth. And you're getting upset, you're rebelling, and you're going, no, this is the truth. This is the truth. Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, there's two dynamics that are happening here. So number one, you're being gaslit. So what happens with gaslighting is the child is perceiving this isn't fair. This isn't right. but they're causing you to doubt your perception. They're causing you to say your perception is wrong. You can't trust your perception.
Constantly.
Our perception is right. You need to only trust our perception. So that is gaslighting. And so a child that's wanting to conform and be accepted and loved, they just shut off their perception and just go, oh, okay, I guess I don't perceive anything correctly. My gut must be misleading me. So it's perception and neuroception both must be wrong. I'll just trust the leaders. But you kind of vacillated back and forth.
Yeah.
So I'm conforming, but no, this isn't right. Okay, so what happens typically in a healthy home if the child perceives something that's unsafe? They cry, they yell, they scream. What happens if they're not being heard? They scream louder. They explain it even more clearly. That's what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
But you were being told you're overreacting. No, you weren't.
Right.
You were saying you're not seeing what's obvious. I'm trying to make it clear. I'm trying to get you to see.
Yeah.
But they just were shutting it down more and more.
Yeah. And then there's a whole group that's doing it. So it's like, and then you're getting punished for it. And you're like, this isn't right, but it would be so much easier to conform, but it's wrong. And I know it. But if everyone thinks this is right, or if everyone thinks that I'm wrong, then how can I be right? And it's kind of interesting because I've used that even later on in my life. It's like, okay, if you think everyone's an asshole, then maybe you are one.
Right. Yeah.
But like, I don't know. But it was almost when I was leaving Scientology, when I was out, I was actually surrounded by people in my family, in my husband's family, who were ex-Scientologists or who were still kind of believed in Scientology a little bit. And I was like, we were having trouble, maybe not getting along. And I was like, yeah, but it's me because not all of them are going to be a-holes, but it's not even to say that they are, but I didn't realize that I was actually really surrounded in people who were of the previous environment. And I had to be like, I had to not think that way. Like I had to stop being like it. Chances are if everyone thinks you're wrong, then you probably are, because my whole previous life had proven that that's not the case. Everyone in Scientology thought that we should conform, and we really shouldn't have.
Exactly. But when you get a system where everybody's conforming, so everybody's shutting off their perception, they're shutting down their neuroception, and they're not thinking for themselves. They're just accepting whatever's being given. That's the only way they know how to keep peace. That's the only way they know how to get their needs met and to feel some love. What becomes the biggest rule is you don't challenge anything.
Yeah. Right.
And if you challenge something, you're the asshole. You're the bad person.
Yes.
And so, but so all of a sudden you're the problem child. You're the scapegoat of the family. That you're causing all the problems. If you would just conform, everybody would be happy. Everything would go back to being wonderful. So now everything is blamed on you. Yeah. And it's not just one person. It's the whole people who are driven by fear that are conforming that now are all ganging up on you, putting pressure on you. And that's why shame-based systems like that are so effective. So to me, the beauty with you is there was always still a small part of you that was committed to being honest, that was committed to use your own brain. And you just couldn't deny some of the evidence. And your brain still wanted to go, maybe there's something wrong with me, maybe it's my fault. But you just couldn't accept the way things were as being not a problem. And so that to me was kind of your lifeline to start getting you out of it.
Yeah, totally. It's completely true. And what's so interesting, I think, is that it was like, I wanted to conform. I wanted to be a good person because I wanted to help people. I genuinely wanted to help people. And I think that when I left Scientology, the fact that I really, truly, genuinely wanted to help people is what made it not work, their sort of brainwashing not work on me anymore, because I would see them hurting people who are my friends right in front of me. And it was almost like I couldn't get out just for myself, because I wasn't worth enough or whatever. But then it was like, I actually believed in being a good person. It wasn't fake.
Exactly.
It really wasn't fake. And if I actually believed that, I was like, then I am doing a bad thing by continuing to support this. But it's interesting because even now, I just like, I always doubt myself. I can't make decisions on my own. I always like call people, and I've realized that recently. I'm like, should I do this? Should I do that? Like 100% of the time almost. And I'm like, why do I do that? I don't trust myself at all. And I also apologize all the time. And it's just weird. Like, how do you get that trust back? Or I guess it's just like you have to be willing to fail and mess up just like everyone else. You just have to do it now when you're 40.
So I get asked this question all the time, Jenna, and to me, it's critical because I think what people are hoping for is that they can kind of within 1 week trust their gut again, think for themselves again, feel confident again. No, it took 20 years for them to beat that out of you and to get you so you didn't trust your perception, your neuroception, your thinking. So you were totally let them think for you, let them perceive for you, let them tell you exactly how everything is, and you just conform to that. You don't get all of that back and learn to trust those very important capabilities within yourself overnight. That's a gradual process. And so what I encourage clients all the time is just begin to be very happy with little baby steps. So you make a little decision for yourself without having to phone anybody just to make sure you're not going to fail. You go, you know what, I'm going to make this decision. If I fail, not a big deal. I'll survive. It's not the end of the world. I'm going to trust my gut here. And just as you find out, wow, my gut was actually leading me correctly. Okay, I'm going to trust it next time again. And it just, you gradually get stronger and stronger. So we call that building agency in people. And it's a very gradual process because of, again, 20 years to get it out of you. You don't get it back in a day.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I feel like I've even gone back and forth in my process, because when I first got out of Scientology, I was like, everything was like blown out of the water. I had my own agency and I was like, this is messed up. And I was like, I'm going to tell the truth about this. And then in order to like sort of conform in my family and not be the black sheep, because I was having kids, it was actually a lot about making sure they had a good family and a good relationship with their family, because I didn't want them to grow up in the way I did. It was like I kind of slowly lost that again, to a point where like friends who had known me before and met me again, or we had reconnected after, they were like, who even are you? You're not yourself at all. And then now I feel like I'm going through a little thing again where I'm like kind of revolting, but it's kind of extra. It's too much. I'm like getting a little angry and it's like a little bit out of control. And I'm like, can I go through this more quickly? Like, how can I?
So a couple of things with this, just to give you a perspective on it. Okay. So again, remember there's the 4 responses to danger, to an unsafe environment. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Right.
And so you tried fight, that didn't go well as a kid. So you couldn't run away. So then you did freeze and fawn, and you became good at conforming. You'd be good at people pleasing. What happens when a person finally gets free of that system is they often go back to fight. Because now I can.
Yeah.
And now all the anger that's been building for years and all the injustice and all that distorted stuff I've been fed, I'm going to expose it. I'm going to set the world straight on all of this stuff. So fight becomes a powerful motivation. That can be very, very helpful for a while in the early journeys of healing, because you're finally taking your power back. You're finally standing up for yourself. You're finally telling the truth and being honest. but you can't stay there forever. You got to go, because what happens with all of the fawning and all of the using the 4Fs is you just don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
when you go to fight mode, it's easy to go, oh, I'm a warrior. I fight all of the injustices, but that's not who you really are. That's still a role that you're
A
playing.
compensation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you go back and forth trying to figure out, who is Jenna? Because I've been a fawner, I've been a fighter now. I don't even know kind of what healthy fighting looks like versus unhealthy survival fighting. I don't know what healthy people pleasing versus unhealthy fawning looks like. Like, how do I
Yeah.
begin to sort all of that out? And that
Yeah.
takes a lot of time. And you can bounce around back and forth. And that's just very normal that people go through that.
That makes so much sense. Like I can almost see if you were fawning, then you get like pissed off. You're like, oh my God, I spent all this time fawning and they just accepted it. And you're like, I got taken advantage of. And then but what happens if you kind of like get stuck in being angry? Like, how do you move forward? Or is it just healing?
So let me just say one more thing around the fawning. So a lot of people have spent years fawning, and then now they get in a relationship and they know that they need to do something to please their children, or they need to make a little compromise to get along with their husband. Oh, that would be fawning. Nope, not going to do that. And they get so rigid and dogmatic that I'm never going to people please.
That did happen to me. I started getting some therapy and I was like, oh, I realized some things. And then I was like, and then I think I became a horrible person and then we got divorced.
Yeah.
No,
So
but I did go extra.
right. So the pendulum swings and I'm going to stand up for myself and I'm not going to be fawning anymore. But you forget about healthy people pleasing. You just get it and almost become narcissistic. It's going to be all about what I need and what I want now.
Yeah.
And that can get dangerous. And so that's so normal that people go through it. And that's why we say for people that intimate relationships often don't work in the early days, because you are bouncing around so much that most relationships can't survive that. It's just too hard on them.
That is so funny that you even know what I'm talking about. Like that, it's an actual thing.
No, that's the world I work in.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So what was your question again? Or did you forget it too?
I forgot it too. Oh, well, I remember it's like, what if you kind of get stuck in that anger phase?
Yeah.
And I guess kind of what I've been thinking since then, not just that relationship, but other relationships, is that I guess you sort of come back. I guess this is a question that I kind of wanted to ask you, is like, it's like at some point you're like, oh, I was putting it all on myself. And I was saying I was the problem. And I'm like, now this guy's the problem.
Right.
This is a bad guy. This is an abuser. This is a narcissist. And this is toxic. And then you sort of like, and obviously there's some cases where that is very much true, but it is kind of like all a spectrum, isn't it? Like in the end, the other person isn't like, I'm not saying they're not a narcissist, but I mean like they're just a person just like you that isn't trying to hurt you. That's not their goal. They're trying to have their own needs met, and they therefore can't deal with yours because they're also going through their anger and whatever. And there's like something in the world where it's like, you're bad if you're not like, he is a narcissist, abuser, and he's canceled. It's like you're bad or weak if you don't say that. But are you really bad or weak to like be like, no, I see what's going on with this person and I still love them and I don't want to get hurt by them, but I also recognize my own ability to hurt. Nobody understands that more than me. And sorry, I just feel like I kind of went on a roll and I'm not sure.
Let me see if I can come at it, because to me it's such an important topic for people in recovery. So if you look at a child that mom and dad or the authorities aren't protecting them, So what the brain has to do is to get more and more black and white. It's all or nothing. You're totally for me or you're my enemy.
Yeah.
You're totally safe, 100% safe, or you're 100% dangerous. There's no 75% safe with a few flaws. It's all or nothing.
Right.
And that's the only way the brain can protect that child is you're for me or you're an enemy. And you divide the world that way. And sadly, that's where a lot of like US culture is gone, is that binary thinking, in that it's fear-based, but it's all about danger and you got to be 100% for me or you're bad. So
Right.
that's what a child grows up with, and that makes sense. That keeps them somewhat safe. What they realize, so a couple of things is, number one, they have no tools to protect themselves outside of, if you're not 100% good, you're 100% bad, so I'm going to 100% avoid you. I'm canceling you. You're out of my life.
Right.
That's my only way of, boundaries are either all or nothing. You're totally in my life or you're totally out of my life. I don't know how to do middle boundaries at all. So the only way I can protect myself is extremes, is the bottom line. So what happens in recovery is, sometimes in the very early days, you don't have a lot of tools to protect yourself and keep yourself safe. So you still got to have extreme boundaries. You're a little bit toxic. I can't even let you in an inch because I don't know how to handle that. And I might get sucked into it like I have in the past, and it's going to mess me up. I'm too vulnerable and I don't have the tools. But what happens as you go on in recovery is you learn more tools and you can protect yourself more and more with healthy boundaries, with knowing when to listen to my gut, what's too toxic for me, what I can manage. I can keep myself safe with these people, even though they're somewhat toxic and somewhat narcissistic, because I can handle it and I'm good. So you develop an internal safety network that isn't dependent on extreme boundaries. So that it's a progression is what I want you to see in developing safety. And it moves from external boundaries to a healthy internal world that's able to handle people. So the reality of life, and this is where I'm going, is there's really no relationships that are intimate relationships where somebody is 100% healthy, pure, wonderful, no flaws.
Right.
You're always going to end up with, they're a wonderful person, they're very safe, but yeah, they got a few issues.
Right.
So they're 80%, 20% where they could hurt me.
Right.
But 80% they're loving, they're good, they're healthy, they're growing, etc. So all intimate relationships, they have a mix of that. And so what you're learning as you get healthier yourself is, what can I tolerate? What am I looking for? I don't
Right.
have to accept anybody that comes along, but I don't want to cancel everybody that's not perfect, because then I'll be all alone. So I have to figure out how to manage relationships and learn that, you know what, 80% safety in these areas is good for me, 20% with some of these side issues, as long as they're this issue and not that issue, I'm okay. And you begin to figure out those boundaries for yourself to keep yourself safe.
I've no, even in Scientology, they would try to be like, this person is bad.
Right.
And I don't believe that.
Right.
I know that some people have major issues and do things that are really bad. It's just very hard for me to believe as a person. Like, I've never met anybody who's like, they're all bad. And I know nobody's saying that, but I just don't believe that people are necessarily out to get other people. I think that people are selfish. I think it's because they have to be, though, because they have so much crap going on themselves. And I even like have thought a lot about it, like, because sometimes sometimes also the reason why maybe somebody isn't in your life isn't just about them. It's also like, I know my limitations and I can't help how I feel or act around this person yet. And it doesn't mean that they're bad or that it's all their fault. but it's like, I don't like who I am when I'm with them. And like, even at some point, it may be like, now I'm ready to challenge that. Like, now I'm ready to deal with that. But if it's something where it's like, this is putting me at a 10 every day, and I can't even get through my normal functions, or I can't be happy, then it's not about canceling, and it's not about putting everything on somebody else. It's like, this is where I'm at, and this is what's right.
What I think is so important for people coming out of complex trauma is number one, that you're probably going to be attracted to somebody else from complex trauma because you're normal. It feels normal. It feels right. That's what you're used to. And so you're attracted to that. So what that then means is you bring into the relationship your baggage. And that's all your hurts. That's all the things that haven't healed yet that can get triggered if they look at you the wrong way, if they make you feel stupid or disrespected, whatever. But they're bringing all their baggage. So you've got your baggage, they got their baggage. Then the longer you live together, you create a third set of baggage, which is the problems that don't get resolved between you.
That's true.
And so now you got 3 sets of baggage. And for most people, what that slowly does is relationship gets more negative than positive. Your day is, you're getting triggered more often. You're not resolving anything. This is a lot of work. This is not fun. Every time I turn around, we got to solve another problem. Every time we turn around, they're upset. Like, this is not what I signed up for. And so it becomes more and more negative emotions as the main part of the relationship. And so what people from complex trauma need to realize is, until I get heal and sort out a lot of my baggage, I'm not ready for a relationship. Because I'm bringing my baggage, they're bringing theirs, and we're just going to start triggering each other, and it's going to create a third set of baggage, and it's going to start snowballing. And so until I'm able to work through a good bunch of my baggage and heal a lot of my wounds and potential triggers, I'm setting myself up to fail in a relationship if I get in it too quickly. And it's not their fault.
Right.
It's my stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I have to realize is, I could go to any person and have a relationship with them, and we'd still end up with the same crap because it's my stuff that I carry with me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's where the healing's got to start.
That makes sense. That makes so much sense. The only thing that I have found that I did want to ask you about is that sometimes those things only come up in a relationship.
Yes.
And it's almost like, and in order to heal them, it almost feels like you have to be in the relationship, because like things come up in my relationship that never come up with my friends. Like, especially like things like fear of abandonment. Like, it's just like with my friends, maybe it should be an issue, but it's just not. Like, I don't have that same thing. And it's almost like my relationship represents something very specific that can't be replicated anywhere else.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you brought this up, Jenna, because to me, you're getting to the heart of understanding complex trauma. So complex trauma is trauma that takes place in the most intimate relationships. So a child with their parents, a child with their siblings, it's the most intimate relationships. So the greatest wounds happened in intimate relationships. They didn't happen in casual friendships. They didn't happen with acquaintances. They happened in intimacy. So what happens when a person gets into recovery is you can do a lot of healing just by learning, reading books, watching videos, etc. You can do a lot of healing with friends and therapists, but that's not intimate relationships yet. And then as soon as you move into intimate relationships, all of a sudden, trigger, and you go, what? I haven't learned anything. What's going on here? I feel like I've regressed. No, you're just now getting to your deepest wounds, because now you're back into a relationship where those wounds initially happened. And so it's just taking you to a deeper level of healing. But what to me, so if I look at your life, a lot of your wounds came through the abusive power of Scientology, the rigid control, all of the shame-based culture that was created by that, the rules, the punishments that weren't even appropriate, all of those things. And that did a lot of damage. But to me, your deepest wound was mom and dad abandoned you.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Now that you didn't live with that every day as far as feeling its pressure every day. That was, you felt with Scientology, and people would look at you and go, oh, your deepest wounds would have come from Scientology. I go, no, no, no. Hers are invisible. It's mom and dad were busy. Mom and dad were put Scientology ahead of Jenna. And that, for most kids, that happened before they're even able to put it into words, before they're even conscious of what's going on. So it's pre-verbal, it's in the subconscious, but it is painful. It is powerful. And so now when they get into an intimate relationship, all of a sudden this fear of abandonment keeps getting triggered and popping up. And it's like, what is going on here? And when it pops up, it's nanoseconds, 0 to 100, you go crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, this is a powerful, powerful wound that has never healed, that now any hint that it might get touched, I explode.
Yeah.
And it just shows, to me, one of the, probably the most powerful wound that comes out of complex trauma is abandonment. And that leads to the fear of abandonment in adult life, which then can destroy relationships because you react to it all the time, and then you do a whole bunch of damage every time you get triggered and react to it.
Yeah.
And that's where people go, wow, this is crazy. So if we can go back to your very original question at the beginning, because I think it was around the fear of abandonment in a relationship. So it's one thing to understand it, which you do, okay? But that doesn't make it go away.
Right.
So it's... So here's what I want you to see is in recovery, you learn deeper and deeper levels of tools as you go along. So you first get lots of very good tools about meditation, regulating your own emotions, grounding, mindfulness. All of those are very, very helpful tools. And they work in a lot of situations. But then you get into intimate relationships and you go, that tool didn't work. That tool didn't work. Like, I need a new set of tools here because the ones I've got already aren't sufficient.
Yeah. And it's easy to think that it's like if you are not having this reaction with your friends, it's easy to think like, oh, it's because this person is bad.
Exactly.
But it's not triggering the same thing. And it's even easy for my friends to be like, oh, but you don't act this way. And I'm like, yeah. But then it's like, no, it's actually completely different. I've never felt this way around my friends. Yeah.
So those with fear of abandonment, that's really deep, like you, 95% of the time, your friends would watch you and go, you're a wonderful person, Jenna. Like, that's not you. Like,
that's what they say. Yeah. And
yeah,
I'm
like, who's saying that you're crazy? Like, we just see this wonderful person. But your kids would go, oh, you haven't seen her at home. She gets to be, there's a different Jenna comes out of the closet, and it's not pretty. And so only a small percentage of people see that other person, and it's the most intimate relationships.
Yeah.
And so that becomes the challenge with the fear of abandonment, is it only shows up in the most intimate relationships, and the majority of your friends don't see that side of you. And they don't think that it's true.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's easy to say, well, it's because you're married to a jerk or because whatever. And it's like, well, that could be partly true, but I think there's more to it than just, it's not all their fault. There's something being triggered deep in me that's causing an overreaction. So if you go back to what we talked about when you would conform, but then all of a sudden you would go into, this isn't right, this isn't, and you get angry, you would over-explain. That's what happens once your fear of abandonment gets triggered. You get louder, you go to fight mode, you get, I'm not going to be abandoned again. This is the worst thing that can happen. I am going to do everything in my power to stop it from happening. So what happens in the brain is you're actually back into severe danger mode. So it's like trauma is about to happen. If I don't stop it, this is a really dangerous situation. I'm about to be abandoned. So I need cortisol and adrenaline to fight extra hard. And it creates this intense emotion of anger, this intense emotion and desire to fight, to hurt somebody, to lash out, to justify myself, to defend myself. But you go totally to your limbic brain because that's your survival brain. And everything gets distorted. You only see it through the lens of, I'm about to be abandoned. You're not seeing the facts of what's happening. You're just seeing the feelings. This feels like abandonment, so it must be abandonment.
Yeah.
So you get emotional reasoning happening. So people can't reason with you and say, Jenna, you're not seeing it correctly. I am too seeing it correctly. You guys are all crazy.
I'll even try to call people and be like, I'm like, convince me that I'm crazy, please. Like, and then they say things and I just like want to fight with them and debate them. And then I think that they're the enemy. I mean, I know I sound crazy right now, but I don't even care. Like, I literally am like, I know that I will regret whatever I do tomorrow, but I'm like, just, can you call, like, and I try to talk to them and then it doesn't work and I don't know what to do. Like, I honestly don't know what to do.
So this is now what I tell clients all the time. This is where you need an elite set of tools because you're handling the most intense emotional reaction your brain can produce. And so it's like, once the train's out of the station, how do you stop a 1,000-ton train that's starting to go 100 miles an hour? It's just like, you can't pull it back into the station. So you need this special set of tools. So a couple things, just again, to me, it's to realize I'm totally in my limbic brain. Things are distorted, even though I don't think they are, but I know in my cortex that things are distorted. I am being triggered. So this is not the time to resolve it because I can't resolve it. I'm in my limbic brain. I have to get myself regulated because I am totally dysregulated right now. So that means I got to get myself grounded, calm down, so I can get back into my cortex. But what you have to realize is for people with severe abandonment issues, that could take you a day.
Yeah.
This
Especially
is not
if it's at night, it's like you can't go outside, you can't go for a walk. And then it's like if part of what triggered the issue is that the person was like, we're not going to talk about this now, we're going to talk about it later because they're triggered, you're like,
that makes it worse.
So much worse. Oh my God, it makes it so much worse. And so you're just like in your room in the dark and it's like, I have nothing. Like I'm trying my hardest and it's like.
So the fear to me with the person at that time is when somebody says, we're not going to talk about this right now, they're hearing we're never going to talk about this.
Yeah.
So my wife and I, we had a thing where we both were dysregulated. I said, okay, this is not the time for us to try to resolve it. Because as soon as one person says something, that just gets us more fired up and then we go off even more. So let's take a 2-hour break or 3-hour break and then we'll come back and see how we do then. But we got to get ourselves regulated. So it was just realizing that there's a time for conflict and there's a bad time for conflict. There's a good time and a bad time. And we as a couple have to give ourselves permission when it's a bad time to say, okay, postpone. That doesn't mean forever. That doesn't mean we're bad. That just means we're triggered and we need to be able to calm down. We do want to resolve this, but it's impossible to resolve it in the current state of mind. And so I'm not feeling judged. I'm not feeling like I'm being shamed. I'm not feeling like I'm being told I'm a bad kid. It's just, no, this is the way it is. And we're giving each other space so we can do this properly. And so that's where some people, they can go for a walk or they just can say, okay, deep breathing, calm down, give yourself a few hours a day, whatever, until we're able to get into it. Some people, they find once they start calming down, it's good to do some journaling to start to challenge their own thinking and their own perception. Have a friend that can be really honest with them about stuff
That's
and
what I
get,
need because the other stuff doesn't work. Like when people say breathe, I'm like, or like I'll go on a walk, but it's hard because I think I need someone, which I know shouldn't be like forever, but I have to vent
yeah,
almost. And if the person's like, I need space, then I will go on a walk and yeah, I'll feel a little better, but I won't, I feel like I have to call a friend or
yeah,
something.
yeah. And that's, to me, that's fine. As long as the friend, you tell the friend, your job is not to fix me. Your job is not to
Mhm.
judge me. I just need to vent here. And a lot of what I'm going to say is probably going to be crazy, but I just got to get it out.
That's a good
So,
point. Yeah. Because sometimes I'm bad mouthing the person.
right.
And then later I'm like, it wasn't really true. I was just mad.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, why would they believe me? Because, so
Yeah.
maybe I need to put like a disclaimer because then I feel guilty and like
Exactly.
I've done something bad. But it's like, I couldn't talk to them and I couldn't regulate. Like I couldn't.
Exactly. So my wife and one of my daughters are verbal processors.
Hmm. My
So
son definitely is too. Mia.
yeah. So like when I'm struggling and I'm dysregulated, I can just go away and think and go for a walk and sort it out.
Mm-hmm.
Not them. They got to talk. That's the only way they
Mm.
can process.
Oh,
And so they just need somebody to listen. And it
yeah.
doesn't need to make sense. They don't need anybody to comment. They don't need anybody to give them advice. They just need somebody that's holding space for them and lets
Mm.
them, because as they talk, they start to calm down. They start to figure some stuff out, and
Yeah.
they're working through it,
Yeah.
but they got to do it verbally. They can't do it just in their head. So the
Yeah.
danger is
Mhm.
if you had a friend that all of a sudden's agreeing with you on everything,
Mhm. Right.
then it's just feeding
Mhm.
your stuff and you're getting more worked up.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's so true. Even I tried to do it with ChatGPT and then it was like, "Yeah, that's really bad." I was like, "No, you're making me feel worse if you agree." But and so I tend to actually call a friend who I know would be like not just agree. And then by the time I'm done venting, it's like, oh, okay, I can sort it out from there
Exactly.
usually.
Yeah,
I already it's like I'm fine. It's just I just have to like get it out because we couldn't really do that ever as
exactly.
kids, ever at all. And it was like always just like kept in. And so the truth is that it would eat away my mind
Yes.
and it was painful.
Yes.
And I need to get things out of my head because it's too much in there.
Exactly. Yeah, it starts to be a hamster and a hamster wheel where it just spins, 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 spin. You're not
Yeah.
resolving anything. You're not sorting anything out, and it just wears you right out.
Yeah. What do you do if like you say for example like your wife or your daughter is like more of a verbal processor and then you're not like you have a need for space and they maybe have a need to talk about well I guess you just answered that. But that does that mean that you're like mismatched or that like
So typically, um, what I find is that often you get a verbal
men?
processor with a, not necessarily, I wouldn't put it that way at all, because to me, I've seen the exact opposite just as often.
That's true. My son's a verbal
Yeah.
processor, yeah.
So
And my
that's,
daughter's not.
to me, that's an old stereotype that has actually done some damage. But
I just
the
want to
other,
throw that out there. Just
the other, the other thing that I see often with people with complex trauma is often a fight person is attracted to a flight person.
hmm.
So the flight person likes the fight person because they stand up for themselves, they express themselves, and the fight person likes the flight person because they're so easygoing, they're so laid back. But
Mm,
once they get into conflict, the fight person just wants to go, go, go. And the flight person is run, run, run. Give me space. I
mm,
want out of here. And they're chasing
mm,
each other around the house, wanting to. The fight person, we got to have this talk. We got to get this sorted out. And the flight person says, no, we don't. No, we don't. We're not ready for this. And it just gets everybody more upset and more angry. And so it's
mm,
again what gets attracted. So with my wife, basically we have to figure out as a couple how to honor both of our styles.
mm,
So I'm a mental on my own processor. I'm an introvert. You're the verbal processor extrovert.
Mhm.
So I got to be able to listen to you, but you also have to have other people besides me to vent to, because I can't be
Mm.
your only vent person, because
Yeah.
that's going to sour me.
Yeah.
And so and then I have to process for a while, but I got to start forcing myself to talk to you and process with you.
Mm.
And so we just had to gradually figure out how to make it work to honor both styles. And what we realized is that we actually benefit from each other's style. It makes us better as a couple.
Mm.
So I appreciate her verbal processing. Often that stimulates some of my mental processing. She appreciates my deep thinking. That gets her through some of her processing. And so it's just
Mm.
really figuring out, don't see one as a strength and the other as a weakness. Both are strengths that are just different. And you got to learn how to make it work together.
And it's not that somebody who processes in a certain way can never be with somebody who processes in a different way. It's just you almost have to be aware that it's going to be a little bit painful sometimes, maybe, and you kind of have to decide how much you can deal with, how much you can put up with, kind of.
Yeah. And I think to me, one of the best examples is parenting.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to love my children, I got to
Mm-hmm.
meet them where they're at and accept the way their
Right.
personalities are. So I have a verbal processor. I have a very quiet one. I have a very in-your-face angry one. And it's like, whoa, the old style of parenting
The
is,
whole variety. It's like you have to be a magician.
right. But the old style of parenting is shut that down, shut that down, shut that down. Everybody's got to do it my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so everybody's got to learn my style,
Mm.
but I don't have to learn anybody else's style. Now that's narcissistic parenting.
Mm.
Loving parenting is I'm going to learn your style and make space for it. And I'm going to help you
Mm.
process in your way.
Mm. That's such a good point. And it's amazing how capable we are of being that person for our kids. But then, like, I guess in your intimate relationship, you're not the parent. And so you almost maybe become a little bit of the child again.
Exactly.
And then you're expecting them to do that for you, and they're expecting you to do that for them. And you kind of maybe have to like grow up a little bit in that.
Yeah.
Or,
So this was actually one of the things I wanted to ask you about after last time.
mm,
So when you get triggered with your abandonment stuff,
mm, mm.
how old do you feel at those moments?
Well, there's different levels of triggering. Like, I actually think that there's a low key always happening. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even like anything I hear, I'm like, I actually think that I'm like constantly like, um, hear things in a certain way.
Yep.
But when I'm like at the big triggers, I like start crying a lot, like sobbing.
Right.
And there are times when I feel like, which is very weird for me as like a verbal processor, because I talk a lot, that I like don't even know what to say or why, or like I yeah, I just feel like
So can I kind of hypothesize something for you?
mm,
Because what I'm hearing
mm,
is there's about 10 different age Jennas inside of you.
mhm,
Each one has a different set of tools, a different emotional capacity, a different way of responding. And so
mhm,
depending on the trigger and the
mhm,
severity of it determines which one of those little Jennas come out.
mhm,
And when that little Jenna comes out, she comes out as that, let's say, 5-year-old. She can't put it into words. She just sobs.
mhm.
She doesn't understand what's going on. She can't think it through and process it, but she can just express the pain emotion.
Yeah.
Whereas other times it's the 10-year-old Jenna that's angry, wants everybody to understand her, that's going to explain everything and over explain it and be quite in your face angry, stomping her foot, demanding to be heard. So I see that Jenna comes out once in a while. And so it really, to me, so the question that was in my mind after last time is whether you've explored kind of some of that inner child work. So this is what inner child work is that there's wounded parts of Jenna that have remained at that age, that when they're triggered, that little wounded girl comes out. And you can actually feel, this is me, but it's little me. This is young me. This is something that's...
Yeah, well, when you say that, like when I'm like crying and I can't stop, like I don't, like I'm like, they need to put their arms around me and just hold me. And like, and then sometimes if they're asking quizzical questions, I'm just like,
exactly.
huh? Yeah. And I think like, I even saw this thing on Instagram recently that was like, this little girl, she was like, Daddy. And I was like, that's how I feel. Like, that's exactly how I feel. Like just like kind of like losing your mind a little bit. And there's nothing you can do about it.
So my question then is, so let's kind of camp on this little girl that just is sobbing, just wants to be hugged and held. Like I think that the 10-year-old stomping her foot doesn't want anybody touching her. She just wants to lash out.
That's different. Someone's trying to learn about you and they're like, how many of them are in there?
Which Jenna's going to show up here today? But let's take the sobbing little one. So you want Daddy to come and hug you and hold you and comfort you and be empathetic to you and just soothe you and love on you. All of that is, every child needs that. Every child wants that. Okay. Can you do that? Give that to yourself. How do you feel towards that little child?
I don't see how I can give it to myself.
Okay.
Like, maybe there's a way, I don't know. It's like hard when someone is right next to you and it feels like it's on purpose that they won't, but it's usually if you just screamed at them and made life a nightmare. I don't know why I'm saying this. So everyone's going to hear this. It's going to look good on me.
No, this is normal, Jenna. I hear this thousands of times, so this is normal. There's a small distinction I want you to think through, okay? So number one, there is a certain reality that little child needs an adult, another person to do the comforting and the hugging. And so there's still an element today where it sure would be nice to get a hug. And we do still need that. That's an important part of adult life, not just child life. But if the child didn't get that hug, nobody gave it to them, they still long for it, but they're not able to give themselves comfort. Because nobody's shown them how to give themselves comfort. Nobody's done it. They've just been ignored. And so what happens when you get to adult life is you're still thinking, I don't know how to comfort myself. I just want somebody else to comfort me. And it's realizing, yes, I still need others, but I can provide 80% of the comfort to myself.
Right. Yeah.
But I got to learn how to do that.
I see what you're saying. And even if I'm like stuck as like, say, like a baby at that moment, even though that is the case, it's not, I mean, I guess a baby can't comfort themselves, but the truth is that they can't because they don't know how yet. But if I know how.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what we know is that children have zero tools to comfort themselves and regulate their own emotions. So mom and dad have to be their co-regulators. They have to comfort them, soothe them, rock them, give them a blankie, give them a teddy bear, all of those things. And then the child begins to learn how to comfort themselves gradually. So mom and dad start as the main co-regulators, but the child gradually learns to regulate themselves. But if you didn't get that, you don't have a clue how to regulate yourself because nobody did it for you. Nobody was your co-regulator. And so that's why it's healthy to say, I need a co-regulator today. Even though I'm 40, I need a co-regulator because I don't know how to do it until I can learn. But if you have the tools, so that, and this is where, to me, I'm driving this, is a lot of people that have the tools, there's still a block to comforting themselves. There's still almost something as
Addicting
that
about.
weak kid, that kid's bad, that kid, oh, I'm ashamed of that kid. That kid should just shut up and get over it. There's still some of that thinking that's blocking you from actually being compassionate to yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I never thought of that.
So that's what I would. So to me, you need both. You need the external person as a co-regulator, but you also, I think there's an element that's blocking you from being able to comfort yourself. So you've got some tools. It's just you're not sure how to use them. So part of what I would have you explore with that is, I suspect you're a lot better at comforting your children than at comforting yourself.
I'm really good at comforting everyone else. Like
Exactly.
I'm so good at it. And I
Exactly.
guess even part of that makes me be like, it makes me think that everybody else should know how to comfort
Exactly.
me. And
So
so I don't believe them. I believe that they just won't if they
exactly.
don't. It's not that they can't, but I'm like, they just won't.
So there's two pieces there to me. And that is, number one, you're still hoping somebody else will love you enough to comfort you. But secondly, you can comfort everybody else except yourself. What's the block there?
Yeah, well, you know what? Now that you just say it, there was something else I was going to ask you about, because actually, like, to be honest, like sometimes in that moment, somebody does try to comfort me and I can't feel it. Like
Exactly.
I can't accept it. Like it's not exactly what I want, what I feel
Exactly.
like I need. And even sometimes, like when I'm really, really upset, I'm like, oh, nobody loves me. And I know, I actually know that I have a lot of people who love me, like, and that I'm actually incredibly lucky because the people who love me are freaking amazing people. And
Right.
but I can't accept it. It's like
Right.
almost like I'm like waterproof or something. Like
Exactly.
it doesn't
So
work.
children who've been abandoned, when other people try to love on them, it's water off a duck's back. They can't absorb it. They can't accept it and take it in, because the block is, I don't deserve this. They don't really mean it. If they knew the real me, they wouldn't be doing this. So I have all kinds of ways of discounting everybody's attempt to comfort me and love me.
That's
But
what I do all day.
it's my
Like they're
own
like,
shame messages that are still putting the waterproofing around me.
okay. Oh my God. It's a
So,
circle.
so that's why what you end up is in this infinite cycle that can never get resolved. Is, I want everybody to comfort me, but then when they try, I can't accept it, and that just makes me go, nobody cares. I just want somebody to comfort me. People try harder. I can't accept it, and it just spins and spins. And so the issue is not the problem with the people. The issue is the shame that's preventing me, that's waterproofing me from being able to receive it.
That's
And
so
so
interesting.
that gets in the way of actually comforting myself too.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I never thought of that. Like, that's so interesting.
But it's pretty big though, isn't it?
Yeah, that is huge.
So again, if I can just take that abandonment piece. So abandonment, like you're starting to see the ramifications into all these different areas of your life. So it's triggering in intimate relationships. You're waterproofing yourself from being loved and comforted, even though that's what you want. Nobody can do it good enough. Nobody can do it perfectly. So you reject everybody. But then what I heard in you is, all throughout the day, you're reading potential abandonment into every conversation, every interaction. You're looking for abandonment constantly and even making it up.
Yeah, but I don't know that I'm doing it. And
No, it's
so,
subconscious.
and I'll even try to resolve it too, though. Sometimes well, you said this, but And then eventually they're like, well, why do you keep criticizing everything I say? And then it
Exactly.
gets into a fight, and I'm like, oh, I knew this. I'm like, this is where it's about to happen. The
And then
abandonment.
do
And then,
you test people?
yeah, I don't mean to, well, but I really do. Like
Yep.
they'll say later, like, this is a test. And I'm like, well, I know some things. I know that if people say, don't do this, especially in a relationship, I mean, I can't even say I'm oblivious to it. Like, it's like,
Right.
I will do that. They
Yeah.
can't say that. They should say something else. That's not smart even
Yeah.
for them. But like, I feel like I don't even realize I'm testing people sometimes when I ask certain questions. I just know that a question occurred to me.
Yeah.
And if I thought about it, I'd be like, oh, this is why. This is what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
And it's almost like then I can't. The truth is that this person is giving me love all throughout the day, but I didn't accept any of it. And
Exactly.
because I was like suspicious of it. And then I wind up at the end of the day feeling like I didn't get any love, but it's really,
Exactly. Yeah. And then that just confirms, yep, they're abandoning me. No, they're not. But
yeah,
you're interpreting everything through the abandonment lens, and it has to fit
yeah,
abandonment. And so you make it fit abandonment.
yeah. And part of it is like, I'm looking for bad things. I'm looking for bad things and putting more weight on them than I am good. I mean, I did realize this at some point in my relationship that I was like, because, there's all these like little things on Instagram where they're like, if this, then your relationship is bad. It's like a good relationship only has this. Or it's like, on some level, it is true that if you're with someone and you like, you see them for how they are, and then if they're not that way, then you walk away. Well, that's all nice to say, but that's not what really happens.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that's all, like, good for whoever can do that. I'm not that person. But I tried to be. I tried to be
Right.
like, okay, well, this is noted. I will, I will, I will remember this and then I'll make my decision later. But then I realized that that's just trying to protect yourself or trying to act like you don't care when you do. And I realized that it was actually a really destructive way of looking at things. It wasn't collaborative. It wasn't loving. And it wasn't, yeah. So I did have to realize that. But I think that I accidentally still do some of it,
And again, there's no judgment on my part, because
Mm,
thousands that I work with, this is their deepest issue. And it takes
mm,
them a while to realize that it's a deep issue, because again, it doesn't usually come out until they have had an intimate relationship.
mhm,
And all of a sudden it's just like, what is this that's triggering me day after day? And they begin to realize it's fear of abandonment that's just driving me. But it
yeah.
affects how I look at the world. I'm constantly looking for negative. I'm subtly testing people without even realizing it.
Mm,
There, but I've also abandoned myself at some degree. I don't have compassion to myself. I'm not meeting my own needs properly. I have a negative view of myself. I'm not
mm,
being honest about and letting myself experience emotions and trusting my thoughts. So there's been abandonment of myself at a whole bunch of levels. So I can't absorb love from others. I can't even absorb love from self. So there's a ton of healing that has to happen around this wound. And this is, I
mm,
would say, is the deepest wound that comes out of complex trauma. It's the
mm,
most painful, and it's you don't heal it overnight. It's a very gradual healing process. It can be healed. It takes time, but
mm.
but you got to keep working away at it, and you just gradually grow in deeper and deeper levels of understanding how deep this goes and the
Mm,
ramifications that it has. So
okay. And what does healing look like? Is it really just like more about changing your habits and being rewarded for the outcome?
so to me, okay, changing external habits is only good if it's also there's an internal shift of
Mm,
attitude.
I
So
see.
just changing external habits without anything changing internally,
Mm,
those habits are going to run out of gas very quickly.
That's so true because I've tried to be like, okay, I'm not going to make a big deal out of this thing and I'm not going to like whatever, but and then it all builds up. It's like, yeah, so it's like you can't do that. It's almost like I tried, but
Yeah. So two things just very much starting, and I think I'm going to let Andy afterwards add his comments because he's worked through a lot of this on his own as well.
mm-hmm.
But the first thing to me is much of what you went through growing up. So you went through your abandonment, but all of your environment was you were only validated if you conformed. You weren't validated for being Jenna, for being your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of abandoning yourself is you've almost kind of disliked your authentic self. You see it as bad. You see it as a nuisance, a pain. And so it's learning to validate yourself, your good qualities, who you are, your personality, but then secondly, accepting that. Because what comes out of not being validated is that you weren't accepted. And I think a lot of that 10-year-old is, here's the truth, but the goal of me presenting the truth is you will accept the truth and accept me and my perception. But that never happened. So you only got accepted if you conform, but that's not true acceptance.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's learning to accept what was perceived as flaws by everybody else and weaknesses, that this is me, this is okay, this isn't bad. Yes, I'm a verbal processor. Sure, that's fine. Yes, I can get angry. That's fine because I get angry because love is violated. Everybody should get angry when love is violated. So you're learning to accept the parts of you that were judged and rejected. You're learning to validate. That to me is very early steps on not abandoning yourself.
Yeah. And even when you're just saying that, it makes so much sense that if you don't accept yourself, how if you're talking to someone else, you can take everything that they say as like you can be defensive because you're assuming that they're not accepting you too.
Exactly. And if they do accept you, you go, I can't accept that.
Yeah, right.
So
They
you
accept you
can't
too bad.
receive acceptance. You're waterproof to it because you don't accept yourself.
Yeah, yes, totally. And it's almost like you think that you're being smart by being like questioning these things, but it's really actually like a wound inside of you. Like I
Yeah.
remember with my boyfriend, like he'd be like, I love you. And but he would never say why. And I know some women are like, well, why? Oh, sorry, tell me all the reasons. But I think that like it's actually kind of nice that there doesn't have to be a reason why.
Right.
Like I thought it was a bad thing.
Right.
But it's like, no, it's just for you. Like, because I was like, well, I'm really good at cooking and I'm really good at all this other stuff. But it's like, those are actually things that I learned to be accepted, to
Right.
be more valuable, to show myself that I'm like I learned how to code, I learned how to play the piano, I learned how to do ceramics, and it was also, it's like I could show Jenna that I'm valuable enough. But it's actually sweet if someone's like, well, those reasons aren't why I love you. I just love you for you.
So most people that have been abandoned become over analytical. So I need to overthink everything. I need to get every detail. I need to know every little bit of information so I won't get abandoned again. So I need to know every warning sign. I need to know everything about everything so I can spot if there's going to be potential abandonment. If somebody just says, hi, I love you, I think you're wonderful. Oh, that means nothing. I need details. I need details. And it's driven by a fear. It's driven by the need to protect myself.
Right.
So it takes good analytical skills to an unhealthy place of trying to overanalyze to protect.
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
Andy, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I have a few ideas maybe for just some helpful tools that
Mm.
that you might like.
I would
And
love
but I do
that.
want to say first that like this is as I've been listening, like I've in you I've seen kind of both sides of my last my last relationship,
Mm.
both me and my ex. And so this has
Mm.
been like a really valuable conversation so far, and I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
good. Oh.
Um, so you just kind of asked about the healing journey and how the healing journey looks. And so Tim earlier mentioned baby steps, and I'm gonna play off that, and the word I'll use is toddler. And
Mm.
so as you're learning new emotions, as you're learning new tools, we kind of blindly stumble around like a toddler. And so we're going to
Mm.
trip, we're going to fall, we're going to get up, we're going to walk again, we're going to trip, we're going to fall, we're going to skin our knees, we're going to get up and walk again. And so it's just, that we need this patience to know like we're not going to get it right the first time, the second time, the
Mm.
sixth time. But
Mm.
we're engaging in this learning process. And part of that process is falling down a lot.
Mm. That
And
makes
I
sense.
think, yeah, you've started you're on the right path, because I think the first step is just it is building this awareness and understanding.
Mm.
And so that's such a dramatic step for most people, is when you can like recognize it, even when you're like, oh, I don't like that, but now you can start to see it. And so the very first tool that I'll offer, and you covered this a little bit, and so I'm just going to draw a bright line there, is limbic, not limbic. If you can if you
Mm.
can just, when you're in your limbic, be able to say, crap, I'm in my limbic.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'll tell you, here's the falling down again. There's a lot of times you're not going to recognize you were in your limbic until after you've come out of it.
Mm.
But to be able to recognize, it's like, oh, I was in my limbic, and that may
Mm.
change how you
Mm.
interact with your partner, with whoever you interacted with
Mm.
earlier, and
Yeah.
give you.
It's hard because when you're in your limbic brain, there's like this urgency. And really, you
Mm-hmm,
need to like to do something, but it's really like you should not be doing anything.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you'll find like different levels of that urgency. And so when you're
Mm.
at that extreme urgency, you're not going to recognize that you're in your limbic. You're not going to be able to make changes right away.
I
But
need to
when
like
you're
lock
feeling like
myself in solitary confinement.
you can,
to-
when you notice that pattern, you can begin to make changes. And
Mm.
so like there's like a cascade. Like I see a lot of what I do is it's like these nudges. We make a change, and then later we can make a little bit of a change more, and a little bit more.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And that makes it realistic where it's building and because no one's gonna, you can't change overnight. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even just like in like developing healthy like eating habits or exercising, it's like when you try to change your whole life upside down all at once, it's like it's just too much. You're gonna fall apart. So that's actually really a nice thing that I've had experience with that I can apply to this. So
Mm-hmm.
that
I remember when I first married and my wife would be annoying me somehow. And it was like, okay, simple boundary, bite your tongue. Because if you say anything, you're going to regret it. And I was pretty good at biting my tongue.
Mhm.
But then once in a while, I'd realize the annoyance level has gone higher than I can not bite my tongue. So I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
to either get out of the house
Escape.
and go for a walk
Mhm.
because I can't sit in the same room and keep biting my tongue. I'm going to say something. And so it's just realizing, like Andy says, you learn a bit, but then you kind of got to refine that with that. Okay, then there's this situation which needs a little bit different tool, and you
Um,
gradually learn that. And it's
yeah.
it's just very gradual process.
That makes sense. And that makes sense too when you say like it's a toolbox. It's not just one
Mm-hmm.
tool. Like it's like sometimes I'll need to just like I can stay here and it's fine. I just don't think about it. And then another time it's like, I'm at a 10. I gotta go. I gotta walk out. It doesn't mean that person's bad. It's not their fault. But this is what I need right now to stay regulated. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned earlier that, a lot of times you're really good at not knowing you're at a 9 until you hit that 10. And so I was wondering, have you ever used a feelings wheel or an emotions wheel, or do you know what that is?
No, I don't know what that
Okay.
is.
And so Tim mentioned the mad, sad, glad.
Mm-hmm.
In improv, they'll say mad, sad, glad, or a frad. And so those are kind of like these four basic. Oh, there Tim has
Oh,
a pillow of it.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And so these feelings will have anywhere from 48 to 68 different emotions on there. And one of the tools that you can use at the beginning of your healing journey is to have a feelings wheel and
Mm.
to check in on it 1, 3, 7 times a day, or whenever
Mm.
you're feeling something really
Oh,
heavy.
okay.
And so you
Yeah,
can
that's a
so
good
instead of
idea.
just being like mad, you're like, oh, disappointed. And this is how disappointed feels. Or instead of just mad, frustrated. Oh, this is how I feel when I'm feeling frustrated.
Yeah, that's up my
Mm.
alley. Trying to find the right word help.
Yeah.
Mm,
And then with that, often then you assign scale of 1 to 10. How intense is it?
Oh, okay. Where
So
do you
that
get
instead,
these feelings wheels? Like
oh,
on
just go on
Amazon?
the internet. There in
Oh,
Amazon, you can get them. Yeah.
oh,
But,
cool.
mhm,
but
That's a great
what
tool.
that begins to do is instead of cluing in that you're stressed out or mad and you got to wait till you hit a 9 usually before you realize that you're even. Now
Mhm.
you begin to realize, oh, I'm at a 5. That
Mm.
usually would have gone under the radar, but now I'm starting to be aware of it.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. And I bet you it's easier to deal with a lot earlier.
It
mhm.
sure is.
You're like, uh-huh. That's not something that I would instinctively know, though.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it builds the contours around your understanding and your awareness. And one thing that I'd encourage too is to, when you're noticing these feelings, just to see to really to check into your body to see where or how you feel it in your body, to notice that. Because maybe you're feeling something in your stomach or in your gut. Maybe
Mm.
there's like tightness in your chest and your heart, or maybe your throat feels a certain way. And so you can kind of start to identify how these different feelings and emotions notice to you. And when you're paying attention to that, the bodily feelings, the sensations of them, then you're going to
Mm.
start to recognize them even quicker and even faster.
Oh, that's such a good idea. And even if you're fine, like even just making it something that you check in
Mm.
with, like I've
Mm-hmm.
had to do that with my own hunger and even starting to with tiredness. And
Mm.
that's actually an amazing tool.
For many children with complex trauma, they don't have, nobody validated their emotions, nobody explained their emotions to them. So
Mm.
they didn't know what to do with them. So they actually got stored in the body as physical sensations.
Mm.
And so that's why Andy's saying what he's saying is that now for
Yeah.
some people,
Oh.
they go, I don't know what I feel, but they know they don't know what they feel as far as emotions, but they can connect to physical sensations and that
Oh
will
my
gradually
God.
direct them to emotions.
Mm.
Yes, that's how I felt when I was leaving Scientology. Like, I was like, even if I don't have the reasons, I was like, I cannot make my body go back in there and do another
Mm-hmm.
interrogation. I was like, it won't let me. And it's like just physical. So that's
Exactly.
really interesting. Yeah, I can
Exactly.
relate to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I think, as like Tim had earlier mentioned, that there's these elite tools that we can use. And so
Mm.
really beginning to understand your emotions and then also kind of understanding the body sensations that go with them. This is like the foundation for a lot of uh, for a lot of really useful tools and for a lot of different practices that we can do.
That's wonderful. That's like so helpful. That's an actual tool that I could use every day. That is
Yeah.
meaningful. Thank
Another
you.
one,
Well,
just very practical. Andy, I'll go back to you, but you watched Inside Out and Inside Out too.
Yeah, but I don't remember. It was a while ago.
Okay.
My kids were littler.
So actually, some people find when they start to get in touch with their emotions, they think in colors.
Mm.
And so if they color in colors,
See red. Yeah.
then it helps them
Oh.
connect to their emotions just because they're
Mm.
putting a color to it.
Yeah. I could totally see that.
And
That's
that's
my
often
vibe too.
helpful with your kids as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because it's almost like sometimes the word isn't just right either.
exactly. Yeah.
Because words are just words. We feel so many other things that aren't just words. That makes a lot of sense, especially for me, because I really love colors. I'm artistic, and that like comes naturally to me. So someone's gonna come in my house and be like coloring on the wall. They're gonna be like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm healing."
Exactly.
You know, you make a really good point there too, because like a lot of times, like people want to stick at the intellectual level or the conceptual level, and it's so valuable to kind of get into that, the feeling level, the emotional level, the body level, and just
Mm,
like that experiential rather than kind of the dryness of words, because the words don't cover what our actual life experience is. And so it's about that
yeah.
experience and about the emotions. And
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, especially if you're it's almost like a precursor maybe to putting the words.
Exactly.
Like
mm-hmm.
it's more physical. It's like one step up from physical and then you can, yeah, that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
Because if you
One,
think of the fact that a child
Mm.
experiences the first couple years of life pre-verbal,
mm,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they don't have words. So how do they
right.
experience life physically and emotionally?
Yeah.
And you gradually, as they learn a language, you gradually can explain to them what they're feeling physically and emotionally. But their initial world is very tactile. You got to touch them for them to feel comfort. You got to hug them for them to feel love. Words
Yeah.
don't mean a whole lot. And so that's really what you're doing, is going back to the very basics of pre-verbal life and helping
Mm.
yourself.
That makes so much sense. Oh my God. So many things just like occurred to me at once that I instantly forgot all of them. But like sometimes with my daughter she'll be like, cuz I've been learning a little bit about cognitive behavioral therapy, which like this is the first step, like is saying the emotions, but saying the feelings in your body, that's actually really helpful too. And sometimes I try to say my emotions, but I don't have the incremental things that would be more helpful.
mm,
So having this wheel is a great tool for that. But so like I'll try to like use it on her or try, I don't know, because I don't always like know what to do. I'm just trying to do my best and I want to be able to help her. And I'll be like, how do you feel? And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I guess we're at, I'll try to give
mm,
suggestions,
We're
but it'd just be
stuck.
nice. Yeah. For her to have that or just for, yeah, just for, yeah, it's just a great tool. And then I was thinking that, because you sort of say like, can you be there for yourself in the moments where you feel like you're being abandoned? And I was like, well, no, but like when I think about it more, it's like when somebody feels like they're being abandoned, like boy, do I know what to do.
Exactly.
Like I feel like I have a superhero power to
Exactly.
know what to do.
Exactly.
But um and people have even said that to me. Like I tend to feel if somebody feels like a little off, like I will just like put my hand on theirs and like I can tell if someone feels like not included or uncomfortable and I'll just like give them a hug and I'll be like and it's all nonverbal.
So again, if I could just put a big picture to that.
Mhm.
So to me, what you were trained to be was codependent,
Mhm.
which is you got to be totally attuned to everybody else's mood, everybody else's emotions, everybody else's thinking.
Mhm.
And so you become an empath. You become highly attuned, highly empathetic because you understand pain. You don't want to see anybody else in pain.
Mhm.
And you become
Yeah.
superwoman to try to help and comfort and rescue people who are hurting.
Yeah, I don't want to see other people in pain and I want to
Exactly.
rescue them and it's like takes a really big toll on me when I can't.
Exactly. But what happens with people that become totally attuned to other people is they're not attuned to themselves.
Yeah. And then I'll take on too many other people and I'm like, I'm
Exactly.
drowning.
And burn yourself out.
Yeah.
And so it's really realizing all of these tools we're giving you is becoming attuned to yourself.
Mm,
Then
yeah.
it's learning to be empathic to yourself.
Yeah.
And because so to me, if you just think of pain, you have tremendous compassion to others in pain, but to your own pain, you minimize it. Get over it, toughen up, don't be
Right.
such a wimp.
Yeah.
All of those things you tell yourself, so you minimize your own pain, you deny your own pain, but you don't deny anybody else's. So
Right.
what that tells me is at some level, pain is super painful,
Yeah. Right.
but you don't want to comfort yourself.
Right.
So that's what you're trying to change now.
Yes. Yeah. And when I think of the things that I would say to my daughter if she was feeling dysregulated or anything like that, because when you were like, can you do that to yourself? And I was like, well, no. Well, how would I know? Because my parents weren't around. But then I was like, oh no, I do. That's why I know. Like,
Exactly.
that's why I know what someone needs. And I never thought about trying to talk to myself in that way as I would my daughter
Right.
at that time. And maybe I can try to do that in that moment.
Just for example,
Especially since I want people to say specific things and they never do.
exactly. So like to me, when you look at comforting a child typically needs soothing words. They need physical touch and hugs and all of that. And they need to get their need met. They need you to get to the real issue and help them resolve it. So you need kind of comfort at different levels.
Right. I can't do it all myself. I also need the need met. Yeah.
So to me, what I see in you is you're really good at the verbal stuff, but you can give the physical stuff to others, but not to yourself.
Yeah.
So there's a break there. There's something that splits that. And so it's really realizing, so a lot of our clients, what they've begun to do is they went back and they got a little teddy bear from when they were a kid. They got a little blankie from when they were a kid. They got some of the little things they did when they were a kid that were soothing. And now when they're hurting, they go get their teddy bear, they go get their blankie, they put on a Disney movie, they sit there, and all of that is comforting the little hurting part of them.
Oh, that's cool. That's so interesting. I'll definitely want to watch The Little Mermaid when I'm upset. I do love that movie.
And a lot have gone back to coloring. They buy coloring books and they color. So again, it's finding out that comforting myself, it's a big concept thing, but there's little wee tools, and it's about comforting the little child and what would I have liked when I was little to have happened to me.
Oh, that is such a good point. Okay. Yeah. Oh my God, I would be so good at that. I used to have when I was a kid, I would not be able to like I didn't live with my parents, and so we lived in these dorms with like 7 other girls, and I was very like terribly afraid of the night. Like, and I would like be so tired, but I would be like trying to stay up with like one eye open, and like I was afraid of vampires. I don't know why. And then I would have like a million stuffed animals in my bed, and I was like I had to protect them. They all had to be under the covers, and it was like I had to protect them. And if one of them fell, it was like, and I was burning up, by the way. I was like really hot. It was like, but we all had to be under the covers. And it was just like crazy. And even when I got married when I was 18, I still like, I brought all the stuffed animals into the bed. And my husband was like, what's this? And I was like, it's just part of I don't know. I just have stuffed animals. And I was like, yeah, so maybe. Honestly, I think what you're saying is that I need to get all the stuffed animals back.
So Tim
That's what I'm
justifies
taking
me
from this.
doing all of that.
Tim said.
Exactly. So now I got to do it. So even, you can explore all of that in your mind, but like other kids, people when they were kids, they had a little fort and they would go into their little fort. Or
Yeah.
they had a tree in the backyard and they go climb their little tree. That was their little safe spot. That was their little
Yeah.
place they could get away and just calm down. So it's finding kind of what are the things that work for me that begin to help me take care of myself when I'm in pain. Because it's not just adult get over it and
Right.
use these academic tools. It's I got to do practical, physical, experiential things that
Yeah.
are actually comforting and soothing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. And I think I have sometimes too much shame to do those things,
Oh, very
to
much.
do what I want. And I need to like, I really don't have the luxury of not doing that anymore. So I'm just going to
Exactly.
I am going to watch The Little Mermaid and get the teddy bears. And I don't care if I look like a weirdo because yeah, it's sort of like what you were saying in the first time we chatted. It's like having joy or having certain luxuries is too much for you. And so it's like all feeds into each other, you know? So I'm like too embarrassed, or I'm like, I don't want to acknowledge or show that I'm in that much pain that I have to do that. And, but to be honest, it's like to the point where I'm just going to.
Good.
I'm just going to, yes.
Good. So do you have any kind of pressing questions that have come out of today? Again, like I think we've got into some wonderful stuff.
Mhm.
If you step away and look at it, we only answered your first question. And then we went on like 50 rabbit holes. So
That's true. I love that actually. But I bet you they're all answered because they were all in there. I'm even gonna, well, I guess like the main, like when I spoke with Andy initially, he talked a little bit about like sort of addressing each of these children at different stages and like reparenting. Is that like the secret? Like, is that how you heal? I know that's a big question,
it's,
but
yeah, like to me, you got to now parent yourself and give yourself what you didn't get as a child. Learn how to
mm,
meet your 12 needs, learn how to comfort and care for yourself and be your own friend.
mm,
So, but what you know from parenting, that parenting isn't like do three simple things and your kids will turn out perfect. Like there's a million things you got to learn how to do.
right. Yeah. And you're like, what if I'm a shitty parent, including
Exactly.
to
So,
myself? But
and that's where, Andy's illustration as a toddler is toddler doesn't get up one day and walk perfectly. You learn by trial and error and falling down and skinning your knee and all of that. And it's a gradual process. And
that
so
makes
is
sense.
parenting and so is reparenting.
Mm,
So, but to me, another thing to say just might help you is a big part of complex trauma, a child in pain, is they can't resolve any of all of these painful emotions, all of these painful sensations. So they start to dissociate. So I'm going to kind of put this part of me in a closet because I hate that weakness, or
mm,
I'm going to stay busy all the time, or I'm going to escape into a fantasy world,
mm.
or
I
I'm just going
definitely
to,
did that. I
yeah,
read a lot of Harry Potter.
exactly.
That
So
helped me.
you develop ways of escaping from the present
Mm,
because the present's too painful.
mm,
And so what can happen for people is that's where parts of them get stunted and get left behind.
mm. When you try to escape.
Yeah. So
Mm,
that part of me where I was wounded, I didn't know how to fix that wound. So that part of me got left behind. So there's 20 little children running around inside of me at different ages
mhm,
that can all get triggered and come out at different times, but it's all part of me splitting off to try to protect myself, dissociating from the present. And so reparenting is parenting all of these little wounded children
mhm,
and bringing them back together and helping them realize it's safe now. You can be fully authentic. We can be together. Um,
mhm,
I'm not going to leave you behind. I'm not going to abandon you, because what happens for many children who've been abandoned
mhm,
is they abandon all the little children inside of them.
mm.
So, oh, you're too weak. I'm leaving you behind. I'm embarrassed of you. Um, You're too
Oh.
angry. I'm leaving you behind. I'm embarrassed of you.
Oh my God, that is
So
such a good point. And that's like what I'm doing to myself,
exactly.
which I would not do to my own kids. But I'm literally being like, okay, it's too embarrassing what you need right now.
Exactly. So it's
Mm.
reparenting has to start by breaking the abandonment.
From yourself, even.
Exactly.
Oh, oh. Oh my God, I'm gonna get so good at this. I'm gonna turn crazy. But I think that another thing that is like when you talked about how if you're in the moment, you dissociate and that's how you save yourself. I think that's why it's actually important. I can have all these strategies, but I also need to get my need met.
Exactly.
So it's like the strategies are good to like regulate myself, but actually I have to have that need met. Now I can regulate myself and then actually realize that the need is being met. I just don't
Exactly.
realize it. Like I'm turning this into an abandonment when it's not.
Yeah. So if I can just say that another way, Jenna, and it would be this. So when you get hurt, so a need's not met.
Mm-hmm.
So typically a person will first go to fight. I'm angry. My need's not being met. I'm being neglected.
Yeah,
But you tried that, didn't work. So
right.
you went to fawning. You went to dissociating. I don't have a need. My needs are bad. Suppress my needs. All of
Mm-hmm.
that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got both kind of fight response, freeze response, fawn response when it comes to your own needs. And
Yeah.
so for you, to me, in recovery, it's beginning to learn to acknowledge your needs, that my needs are okay, they're not bad. I
Mm-hmm.
can be honest about them, but now
Mm-hmm.
I have to learn how to meet them. And so it's one thing to understand them, but now I got to take steps to actually learn how to meet those needs. And that's, again, a process.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Like that is so helpful that it's not just understanding, but I actually have to figure out what would meet that need in me. And I can be a lot more creative about it when I realize that it's my job.
Right. So if I can say that another
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm.
so what happens for a lot of people in adult life? So your need is not being met, you're
Mm-hmm.
hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but your first response now is anger. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I'm being abandoned again. So anger covers up my hurt. As long as
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling angry, I don't feel the hurt.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
anger is actually a medication, and that's why we call it a secondary emotion. So rather than feeling the
Oh.
primary emotion, which is hurt, I'd rather feel anger.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have to do is get to the point where you calm down the anger and then be curious, what's the hurt?
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's interesting. And maybe you shouldn't talk to your boyfriend when you're angry. You should just calm yourself down and then get back to where you're hurt. And
Well,
then
when I'm
welcome.
angry, what
Mm,
happens is I become usually quite self-righteous and it's everybody else's fault.
yeah, for sure.
And so I'm not even looking at my hurt. I'm looking at what they did wrong.
Yeah.
And so when I get calmed down, then I can explore my hurt and I go,
Mm,
oh, that's what's going on here. It's not even about them. Well, they did some stuff and I need to confront that maybe, but this
mm,
is the real issue is my hurt here that I need to
mm,
look at. And so
mm.
it's giving yourself permission to get curious about what the hurt is, not judging
Oh,
yourself for having the hurt, but saying,
yeah.
what's going on here? And
Yeah.
it's okay to explore it.
Oh, that's such a good idea. Like getting curious when I'm angry about something because it's almost like I'm ashamed to be hurt. So it's like
Exactly.
I have to be angry.
Exactly.
And it's like actually, and it's so funny because I was having a conversation with somebody. I was like, well, how come when I'm angry, you don't be like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, I can be like, oh, what's really going on with myself without hurting somebody else. And then maybe come at it to them when I am like more chill.
Yeah. So another way to say that is often the anger is also masking my shame. So I'm
Mm.
hurt, but
Mhm.
if I'm honest about my hurt, then that exposes that I'm weak. And everybody's going to see that I'm weak. So if I stay angry, it's everybody else's fault. I can keep hiding my wounds and my weaknesses. So my shame is actually feeding the anger.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
And that's why you need a safe place to be able to say, I don't need to be angry. I'm not going to get judged. I'm not going to get put down. Let's explore the hurt.
Yeah. That being curious with myself, though, that's a huge tool that that I use on my friends all the time.
Exactly.
It's like I'm so good at it, not to brag.
Just
But
using it on yourself.
Yeah, I've never once thought of using it on myself. I've been like, who's gonna come ask me why I'm angry? Which is so bratty.
But that's shame.
Yeah.
If you ask me why I'm angry, I'm not going to get honest and look internally, because that might expose how weak I am. I'm going to turn it back on you and make you the bad guy, and I'm going to get defensive.
Yeah, and it's almost like I'm not worth doing that for, but all of my friends are. And yeah,
So
that's
if I
interesting.
can sum up what I've seen today, Jenna, to me, I've been very encouraged again by our conversation.
Me too.
What I see is there's this huge split in you, that you have a wonderful set of tools for everybody else,
Oh, yeah, that's
but
so
not for
true.
yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's learning to use that wonderful set of tools
My God, that is so
on
true.
yourself and parent yourself. And that's where I think the second point is, being a mother of children is actually one of the best teachers for you to learn to apply the tools to yourself.
Yeah.
What
What's
I
crazy,
do
I've never once thought of applying them to myself.
Exactly.
Like not even once.
Exactly.
That's so amazing. Oh my God, I'm gonna spoil myself. I'm gonna be,
You're going to say to your kids, make your own supper. I got to take care of me tonight.
they're gonna be like, what's happening? They're gonna make it their life goal to like hunt you down and be like, no, that is so true. It's actually kind of really empowering to realize that I have the tools. I've just been too ashamed to use them for myself. And yeah, that's a huge deal. That's so helpful.
So what I would see is, if you don't learn to use them on yourself, as your kids get older, you'll get less and less ability to use them on them. Because you'll get more impatient with them, more frustrated with them, that they're not getting with the program. They're not getting fixed quickly.
Yeah, it's true. I can even see the beginnings of that. It's like the longer you are unhealed, it's like the more it's going to like start to where you can't look out for everyone else. It's like a type of burnout, kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So
that's so interesting. Oh my God.
So does that give you lots to think about?
Yes, so much. I'm going to go out of control, you guys. I'm going to have candles everywhere. Hopefully my house doesn't burn down. I'm going to start watching cartoons. People are going to be like, what's going on? No, but I love it. I actually feel really empowered.
So I got to tell you something. So my wife resists watching the old Disney movies, but I've learned over the years with her that if I can get her to watch it, it puts her back into this very childlike place that's very healing and therapeutic for her. So sometimes I'll say, do you want to watch an animated Disney movie? No. I got too much to do, blah, 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 blah. So last weekend they came out. There's a new one where they've turned it into a musical. I can't even remember which one it is.
Was it the Lion King one? I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, so I said, hey, we got to watch this. So she sat down with me, and she's crying, and she just gets all soft, etc. And so then she said, I want to do this regularly. So we've been watching. And it's just again realizing that something in us as an adult resist it because that's for kids and it's our
Yeah.
shame talking, when it's
Mm.
actually the thing we need to parent ourselves and feed our soul. And so it's giving
Yeah.
ourselves permission to do those childish things
Yeah.
that are actually helpful.
Yeah, that is so good. I love that. That's totally hits the spot for me. I'm gonna watch The Little Mermaid, I'll listen to Harry Potter. And because I would watch The Little Mermaid when I was a kid, and it was all about this girl in this world underwater, and she wanted to be part of a different world. And I was kind of like stuck in Scientology, and I wanted to like, and so it was like my favorite.
Ariel, yeah.
Yeah. But it's like an escape. So it's like you have to also get your need met, but also it might be being met. You just haven't realized, you haven't allowed it to accept the love that is there.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Andy, did you want to do your closing remarks?
Yeah. Well, I just want to second everything that you two have been talking about the last few minutes, this reparenting and what you said, about how you treat your children the last time we spoke. I just see that you're a very loving and caring and kind mother. And I have a client right now who he has a 5-year-old son, and it's almost every week I I have him treat himself the way he would be treating his 5-year-old son. And so
Mm,
really using your built-in mothering skills to be able to
yeah.
reparent and to mother yourself. And I can see that
That's
that's
so genius.
always already connecting with you. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah. Well, Jenna, thank you.
Thank you
Thank you so
guys.
much for your openness and your honesty again in today's
Yeah.
conversation and
Thank
your
you
your
guys.
willingness to not only share your story, but questioning, exploring like your shame and your abandonment wounds, your healing it's really incredible. And
Thank you. Well, I
so,
feel like it's all for my benefit, so I feel guilty when you say
mm,
thank you to me. So thank you to you guys
mm,
for listening to
I
this.
it's your story is like it's as I shared earlier, like it's touching me, right now in this conversation. And so I know it'll be
Thank you.
something that'll touch a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you guys
Uh,
so much. You guys are wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Well, I look forward to next week and we'll dig deeper and you kind of get your questions ready and see what percolates to the surface as you do all of this. And then we'll see where we go next week.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you for joining us on the Time with Tim podcast. If you'd like to share your own experiences or have questions, feel free to email us at podcasts@timfletcher.ca. Want to learn more about complex trauma? Subscribe to Tim Fletcher's YouTube channel for past lectures and his Friday night Tim Talks. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. Looking for more support? We offer programs and courses to help with healing complex trauma and recovering from addictions. Visit timfletcher.ca to learn more or send us an inquiry. We're here to support you. Until we meet again, take care and thank you for letting us be a part of your healing journey.